It's called 20-year marriage contract with the option to renew. And I don't ask all of my guests about it, but you in particular would be a really great guest for me to ask your opinion on the way that we has structured marriage in this country till death do us part. The first thing you said to me was so many people come to you and were like, I feel like I failed because we have this vow that says, till death do us part. And if you don't reach that till death do us part, you have ultimately failed. And so if we restructure our marriage and the way that we look at it to say, like, okay, whether it's a 15-year marriage contract or a 20-year marriage contract, but you go into a contract with the intent of spending a good chunk of your lives with one another, but realizing that especially during those marriage years, like we're evolving and changing at a very high rate. And that as you move into that 15-year or 20-year mark, things can change and evolve. And how amazing would it be for changing the divorce dialogue to say, like, okay, I have an out and I don't have to spend tens to hundreds thousands of dollars on leaving this marriage. My kids knew that we were in this contractual arrangement and that, we're going to either decide that we're going to be together as lovers and romantic and partners, or we're just going to evolve our relationship, especially if you have kids, but without the drama. Because if you have a contract, you know specifically how things are going to end. So, especially if one person is staying home and the other person is working, like there's so much dynamic there that really can set people off on the wrong track in divorce. But what if we thought about it when we're still loving each other? What if we thought about these things when we were in love
Yeah.
and getting them on paper when we are in a good mindset? So, what are your thoughts?
I think it's really an interesting way to think about things, right? Because it would take away this idea of taking for granted, like, well, you signed the marriage certificate, you said till death do us part, home and free, we got the rings on our finger, right? Like it makes you potentially actively engage in keeping the relationship spontaneous and interesting and loving and safe. This idea that there's no guarantee what happens after 20 years. And of course, 20 years being a really interesting point especially for people with children, because that's a time where hopefully children are launching into the world. You're going as a couple potentially to have more time to yourselves to rekindle whatever you lost while you were tending to children, right? So that 20-year period is a period where a lot of couples, even healthy couples, happy couples, find themselves in limbo of this new world, this empty nest syndrome. What do we do with our time that we always wanted when they were in diapers and now we have it, we barely know each other or we barely know ourselves. So I think it's that 20-year mark is a really interesting way. And I do think whether people go into this 20-year contract, as you say, or not, I think that's what we're seeing is people are getting through the parenting, they're launching their children, and then they're going, they're, I don't know that this is what I want anymore. I'm so far gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just becomes super hard to, like, separate, like, instead of just be like, "Awesome, we did our jobs here, like, let's love our children together, let's still continue to co-parent our adult children, let's still, like, celebrate everything that happened in our lives together
Yeah.
and focus on the good, and let's just move on with our lives and not have to spend $100,000 to get a lawyer to draft up an agreement and create drama where the drama doesn't need to be." You
I think this speaks to this idea though that we don't want to wait till 20 years to be like, hey, how are we doing? Right. So like this idea of like we need to be checking in, we need to be having these conversations, we need to be anticipating that through different things, whether it's the birth of a child or the loss of a job or something like a COVID pandemic, that we're gonna naturally have some highs and lows, and we need to be checking in with each other and tracking